बोधिसत्त्वस्य प्राज्ञापारमितमसृत्य विहरति चित्तवर्णः चित्तवर्णः नसित्वरत्रस्तो विपर्यस्तिक्रान्तो निस्तनवानः प्राप्तः त्वद्वाव्यावसिद्धः सर्वबुधः प्राज्ञापारमितमसृत्य अनुतरम् सम्यक् सम्बोधिम् अभिसम्बुधः तस्मच्यक्तव्यं प्राज्ञापारमितः महामन्त्रोस् महाविद्यामन्त्रोस् नूतनमन्त्रोस् समसममन्त्रः सर्वदुःखप्रशमनः सत्यम् अमितत्वत् प्राज्ञापारमितम् उक्तो मन्त्रः तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा इति प्राज्ञापारमितं हृदयं समाप्तम्। ॐ नमो भगवताय प्रियप्रज्ञापारमिताय रियावलोकितेश्वर बोधिसत्त्वो गम्भीरं प्राज्ञापारमितं चार्यं चरमन्नो व्यावलोक्यति स्म पञ्चस्कन्धः तं स्वभावशून्यं पश्यति स्म ईशाशारिपुत्र रूपं शून्यतैव रूपं रूपं न प्रतीक् शून्यतया न प्रतीक् रूपम् यद्रूपं स शून्यतया शून्यतथाद्रूपम् एवमेव वेदना संज्ञा संस्कार विज्ञानम् ईशाशारिपुत्र सर्वधर्मः शून्यतलक्षणानुत्पन्ना अनिरुद्ध अमला विमला अनुनपार्णपूर्णः तस्मत्शारिपुत्र शून्यतयं न रूपं न वेदना न संज्ञा न संस्कार न विज्ञानम् न कक्षुस्कृतग्राधा जीवकायमंसनि न रूपशब्दग्राधारसस्पृष्टव्यधर्मः न कक्षुदतुर्यवना मनोविज्ञादतु न अविद्या न अविद्यासयो यवनजरमारणं न जरमारणक्षयो न दुःखसमुदय निरोधमार्गः न ज्ञानं न प्राप्तिः न अप्राप्तिः तस्मत्शारिपुत्रत्रत्तित्वात् बोधिसत्त्वस्य प्राज्ञापारमितमसृत्य विहरति चित्तवर्णः नसित्वरत्रस्तो विपर्यस्तिक्रान्तो निस्तनवानः प्राप्तः त्वद्वाव्यावसिद्धः सर्वबुधः प्राज्ञापारमितमसृत्य अनुतरम् सम्यक् सम्बोधिम् अभिसम्बुधः तस्मच्यक्तव्यं प्राज्ञापारमितः महामन्त्रोस् महाविद्यामन्त्रोस् नूतनमन्त्रोस् समसममन्त्रः सर्वदुःखप्रशमनः सत्यम् अमितत्वत् प्राज्ञापारमितम् उक्तो मन्त्रः तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा इति प्राज्ञापारमितं हृदयं समाप्तम्। ॐ नमो भगवताय प्रियप्रज्ञापारमिताय रियावलोकितेश्वर बोधिसत्त्वो गम्भीरं प्राज्ञापारमितं चार्यं चरमन्नो व्यावलोक्यति स्म पञ्चस्कन्धः तं स्वभावशून्यं पश्यति स्म ईशाशारिपुत्र रूपं शून्यतैव रूपम् रूपन्ना प्रतीक शून्यतया न प्रतीक रूपम यद्रूपम स शून्यतया शून्यतथा रूपम एवमेव वेदना संज्ञा संस्कार विज्ञानम् ईशा शारिपुत्र सर्वधर्मः शून्यत्व लक्षणानुत्पन्ना अनिरुद्ध अमला विमला अनुनपार्णपूर्णः तस्मच्छारिपुत्र शून्यतयं न रूपं न वेदना न संज्ञा न संस्कार न विज्ञानं न कशुस्कृतग्रन्थः जीवकायमंसनि न रूपशब्दग्रन्थरसस्पृष्टव्यधर्मः न कक्षुदतुर्यवना मनोविज्ञदतु न अविद्या न अविद्यासयो यवनजरमारणं न जरमारणक्षयो न दुःखसमुदय निरोधमार्गः न ज्ञानं न प्राप्तिः न अप्राप्तिः तं तस्मच्छारिपुत्र तृतीयत्वात् बोधिसत्त्वस्य प्रज्ञापारमितमश्रित्य विहरति चित्तवर्णः चित्तवर्णः नसित्वरत्रस्तो विपर्यस्तिक्रान्तो निस्तनवानः प्राप्तः त्वद्वाव्यावसिद्धः सर्वबुधः प्रज्ञापारमितमश्रित्य अनुतरम् सम्यक् सम्बोधिम् अभिसम्बुधः तस्मच्यक्तव्यं प्रज्ञापारमितम् महामन्त्रोस् महाविद्यामन्त्रोस् नूतनमन्त्रोस् समसममन्त्रः सर्वदुःखप्रशमनः सत्यम् अमितत्वत् प्रज्ञापारमितम् उक्तो मन्त्रः तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा इति प्रज्ञापारमितं हृदयं समाप्तम् ॐ नमो भगवताय प्रियप्रज्ञापारमिताय प्रियावलोकितेश्वर बोधिसत्त्वो गम्भीरं प्रज्ञापारमितं चार्यं चरमन्नो व्यावलोक्यति स्म पञ्चस्कन्धः तं स्वभावशून्यं पश्यति स्म ईशा शारिपुत्र रूपं शून्यतैव रूपम् रूपं न प्रतीक् शून्यतया न प्रतीक् रूपम् यद्रूपं स शून्यतया शून्यतथा रूपम् एवमेव वेदना संज्ञा संस्कार विज्ञानम् ईशा शारिपुत्र सर्वधर्मः शून्यत्व लक्षणानुत्पन्ना अनिरुद्ध अमला विमला अनुनपार्णपूर्णः तस्मच्छारिपुत्र शून्यतयं न रूपं न वेदना न संज्ञा न संस्कार न विज्ञानं न कशुस्कृतग्रन्थः जीवकायमंसनि न रूपशब्दग्रन्थरसस्पृष्टव्यधर्मः न कक्षुदतुर्यवना मनोविज्ञदतु न अविद्या न अविद्यासयो यवनजरमारणं न जरमारणक्षयो न दुःखसमुदय निरोधमार्गः न ज्ञानं न प्राप्तिः न अप्राप्तिः तं तस्मच्छारिपुत्र तृतीयत्वात् बोधिसत्त्वस्य प्रज्ञापारमितमश्रित्य विहरति चित्तवर्णः चित्तवर्णः नसित्वरत्रस्तो विपर्यस्तिक्रान्तो निस्तनवानः प्राप्तः त्वद्वाव्यावसिद्धः सर्वबुधः प्रज्ञापारमितमश्रित्य अनुतरम् सम्यक् सम्बोधिम् अभिसम्बुधः तस्मच्यक्तव्यं प्रज्ञापारमितम् महामन्त्रोस् महाविद्यामन्त्रोस् नूतनमन्त्रोस् समसममन्त्रः सर्वदुःखप्रशमनः सत्यम् अमितत्वत् प्रज्ञापारमितम् उक्तो मन्त्रः तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा तद्यदा गते गते पारगते पारसंगते बुद्धि स्वाहा Yata gate gate parasamgate bodhi swaha. Iti prajna paramitam hridayam samaptam.
Dumba Jumden de Jawa da Jumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigba Dan Shamsu Demba Dewara Shiva Jigden Kemba Kibu Dube Kalu Jova Lana Meba Lada Menamje Dumba Sanje Jumden de Bejawa Shaja Tuba La Chazel Jodo Jazu Je Ho Dumba Jumden de Jeba Tajumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigba Dan Shabsu Demba Devara Shiva Jigden Kimba Jibu Duve Kalu Gyurva Lana Meba Lada Menamji Dumba Sanje Jumden de Bejawa Shaja Tuba La Chazelo Chodo Jazu Je Ho Dumba Jumden de Sheba Tajumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigba Dan Shabsu Demba Devara Sheba Jigden Kimba Jibu Duve Kalu Gyurva Lana Meba Lada Menamji Dumba Sanje Jumden de Bejawa Shaja Tuba La Chazelo Chodo Jazu Je Ho Sanje Chodan Soji Chonama La Chanju Bado Tane Jazu Je Tagi Choshi Jibe Sonama Je Drola Penje Sanje Drobara Sho Sanje Chodan Soji Chonama La Chanju Bado Tane Jazu Je Tagi Choshi Jibe Sonama Je Drola Penje Sanje Drobara Sho Sanje Chodan Soji Chonama La Chanju Bado Tane Japsu Je Tagi Choshi Jibe Sonama Je Drola Penje Sanje Drobara Sho. Okay. Good morning and welcome back. This is the first session of our second semester of this year, and I hope you all had a good rest during our 1 month break. So you can hear me clearly? Okay, let's hope so. So, I don't know where to start. So today, we are starting off with the Heart Sutra, which is a very common sutra. Every culture has this version, and it is recited all the time, especially amongst Tibetan. This is one of the daily prayers people include. One of the prayers they include in their daily prayers. So it is so popular. And I think there is a reason why this is so much revered. And even at teaching places, whenever there is a teaching, Every teaching begins with the recitation of Heart Sutra, especially at His Holiness teachings. So this is so popular, so common, yet it is so difficult to understand. Yet it is so profound. So that is called this. That's why Heart Sutra, or anything related to in relation to emptiness, is called Masam Jume. That means ineffable, which is beyond explanation, beyond conception, which is so hard to explain as it is. And this means even though who has actually realized all the what you call the gain insight into emptiness finds it difficult to explain. And then not to mention for me to try to explain this text here. So of course Heart Sutra can be taught in various degree of profundity. This can go, some practitioner or great teacher can teach Heart Sutra for days. Because it is going to dive into the what you call the philosophical views. And if you look at in Lamrim Chemo text, just on the topic of object of negation, there are like 30 to 60 pages. And there are great scholars who have misunderstood when Buddha said that things are empty. So because of that, Lamrim Chemo really stressed the importance of understanding what we are negating. What is that we are talking? What is that we are talking about? Empty, being empty. What is that thing? So great teacher can teach this for days, but I am trying to just touch on the surface. I don't have the insight, or I don't have the ability to really go so deep. That is your misfortune that you ended up with me. So anyway, for the coming 3 sessions, we will try to go by line by line. What in Tibetan we call it Tsigdil, is explaining what that word means. But of course, now that it is translated in English, it seems quite easy. But of course, if you have some understanding in the emptiness, then of course it makes sense. But those who have no idea of emptiness, it doesn't make sense. It reads like no eye, no nose, no ears, so it doesn't make sense. But of course, when you have the understanding of emptiness, then it makes sense. Oh, I see. That's what it means. So that's what we are going to attempt. That's what I am trying to attempt here. So what is this Heart Sutra? So it is called the Essence of the Wisdom Sutra. the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. So Buddha has taught so many volumes of teachings, and normally we classified all these teachings and kind of sum it as the 84,000 volumes. So these happen in stages. So Buddha is known to have turned what is known as the three turning of the wheel of Dharma. So when Buddha first achieved enlightenment, Buddha did not teach. He remained silent. Tuzudabu choshi koyoni sula tenya kowar menube mimanagi nangdu nebrachas. What Buddha has realized is so radical. It is so revolutionary that he felt that if he is to teach that, if he is to tell people that this is the real way, this is the way to achieve happiness, he felt that people will not understand, because it's completely opposite the way we believe or the way we perceive things. So that's why Buddha remained silent for months until the king of Deva requested Buddha to turn the teaching, turn the wheel of Dharma. So that's when Buddha first taught the Four Noble Truths in Varanasi. So, as you are all aware of the Four Noble Truths, first about the Noble Truth of suffering, to identify, because we are all struggling to achieve happiness. We are all trying our best to avoid suffering and pain. So in order to do that, Buddha said that first we need to identify what are sufferings. Because for many ordinary people, when it comes to suffering, we understand it as only the physical sufferings or something a grosser level of suffering. And then Buddha taught about these three types of suffering: the suffering of suffering and the suffering of change. The suffering of change is what we ordinary people view as pleasure, as happiness. Buddha said, no, that is not pleasure, that is not happiness. That is also a type of suffering. And that is not enough. There is deeper level of suffering, which is called the conditioned pervasive suffering. So in order to eliminate, extirpate, to uproot these sufferings, in order to eliminate the suffering, we need to first understand. We need to understand the causes, the origin of suffering. So once we identify the origin, the causes and conditions that give rise to our suffering, then we can extirpate or eradicate these causes and conditions. So by doing so, it will automatically eliminate the suffering. So that's why the second noble truth. So when you look at this, then you understand that, oh, I see. It is possible to achieve freedom from all this suffering. So that's when the cessation, the third noble truth. But in order to achieve that cessation, in order to achieve that the liberation from suffering, we need to engage or embark onto a specific practices. That's when the noble truth of path was taught. So anyway, so that was a general structure. And so in order to elaborate on that, then Buddha taught the second noble truth, which is like an extension to the noble truth of cessation and noble truth of path. So that's when Buddha taught about, because in the first two noble truths talk about the suffering and the causes of suffering. And Buddha taught about the 12 links of dependent origination. So the first one is ignorance. So because of ignorance, we end up in cyclic existence. So here it says in the Nagarjuna's text, fundamental of wisdom. Obscured by ignorance and for the sake of rebirth, we create the three kinds of action. It is these actions constructing existence that propel us through transmigration. So this is the ignorance. Ignorance is the one that propels us to engage in these three kinds of actions. So here we talk about three kinds of karma. So the karma that brings us to the lower realms, the karma that brings us to human realm, the desire realm. So let's talk in the context of three realms. The karma that brings us to lower realms, the karma that give rise to the birth of the lower realms, and then the form and formless realms. So because of ignorance, we engage in this. So it is quite clear. So those who are not motivated by renunciation or motivated by this wish or desire or aspiration to achieve liberation or enlightenment, whatever we do when we think about it, everything, even if we do like those who engage in samadhi or these concentrated absorptive meditations, these are only to be born in formless realms or form or formless realms. So from appearance, it looks like practicing something to be go beyond samsara, but because of the motivation, that karma becomes a karma to be reborn in samsara itself. So that's why ignorance is the source of our problems. Even in Lama Tsongkhapa's, the three principal aspects of path, it says, Nilu tobe shera midena, nijung chanju semla komje yang sibe zawa chobra minube, dijir tende tobe tabla bes. So English translation says, without the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, even though you have generated renunciation and the mind of enlightenment, you cannot cut the root cause of circling, therefore attempt the method to realize dependent arising. So even though we have generated renunciation, even though we have cultivated bodhicitta, but until and unless we develop this insight into emptiness, there is no way we will be able to cut the root causes of suffering. So that one we have already discussed before, but just I will say it anyway, just to illustrate the point. Just look at even the smallest thing, what we call the family squabbles, the trivial arguments. When you really analyze that, when we really examine the real cause, the underlying cause of that argument, where does it stem from? Of course, we will say, oh, I argued back, I argued because the person said so. We may find that retorting is the obvious cause. But then when you go deeper, why one responded that way is because we say, oh, I see, it's the anger. And then even below that, there's something else. Why did we get angry in the first place? Because of attachment to ourselves. We cherish ourselves. But then, even if we go deeper, why did we have this attachment in the first place? It is because we have created this construct of I, which is something independently there, which appear to be not dependent on anything else. It's something solid there. So because we have kind of misconstrued, or we have this constructed that kind of identity, we develop attachment. So when we have this kind of attachment, what happens is that you will be all the time defending this I, this precious I. When others are kind and nice to this I, you are happy. You respond accordingly. And that's when you, develop attachment to those people who treated this construct I favorably. And then when some people threaten this construct of I, then we get angry, we become defensive. So when you look at all this, when you examine these arguments, so why I use argument? Argument is something which is very common, especially if you are living together. It is very funny, this lockdown, for some people, this was such a great opportunity to catch up with your partners or your loved ones. For some people, it was so difficult. And whether true or not, I heard that actually the number of divorce cases increased. So that is very sad and unfortunate. So anyway, when we analyze our argument, our quarrel, so deep down, it is all because of this having this identity, this solid identity of I. It is harming this I. I must defend this I. That person is saying something very harmful to this I. So because of that, we react. And then when we react, of course, we have no control. And that's when we say or do regrettable things. So that's how that ignorance of the reality of self is the source, is the root cause of our problems. So normally we say that there is no quick fix, there is no panacea. But I think in terms of emptiness, if we are really able to gain insight into emptiness and the relationship between the emptiness and the dependent origination, that is the panacea. That can be the panacea. That can solve all our problems. So, yesterday I was listening to a talk by one of the great scholars of Dibung Loseling, Geshe. So he tells a story, and I thought that this is so good, so relevant. So this story goes like this. So there was once a father with 3 sons. So when father was not very old, he already divided the assets to his 3 sons. So the 2 sons went their separate way. The 1 son remained with the father, but now that he is the custodian of the assets, he already got his share. This one son, the son who is living together with the father, and then of course the other 2 who are away, they have no much interest in their father. And father was struggling. So they are not really taking care of them, taking care of him. So the father's friend became aware of this, and he felt sorry for this one, and he said that, I have an idea, why don't we try this? So what he did was, he came up with this genius idea or plan. So while the youngest son was there with the father, this friend brought along a box which seemed so heavy with a huge lock, and brought it to the house, and then told the father that, hello friend, so this is what you asked me to keep, and you told me that when you are experiencing trouble, when you are facing difficulty, you said that only then to give me back. So I see that you are now struggling. So here is whatever you asked me to keep, I am returning to you. And the youngest son who was there, he saw it. But of course, it was locked and the key was tied to a string, and then the father kind of wore it on his neck, around his neck, so that nobody can open up except him. So this son, his behavior suddenly changed. Suddenly he is polite, he is very kind, lovey-dovey and all that, and he started to take care of his father. And then this certain change of behavior in this youngest son was noticed by the other 2. And after inquiring into it, they came to learn that there was this box containing something. So they had a discussion. So why don't we... No, the father told... Sorry, I missed that important part. So the father told the youngest son that, since you are already taking care of me, So when I die, after I die, you can have the box. So that's when the youngest son's behavior changed. So anyway, when the other two sons learn about this, they have a discussion. They had a discussion and they agreed that, okay, since he is father to all, we will take turns to take care of him, and then we will share whatever that is. We will divide equally among us. So that was the agreed plan. And then all the three sons took turns to take care of the father. And father was treated so well because they fear that if he is unhappy, he may decide not to give that to them. So eventually father passed away, and then the boys opened the box. And out in there, when the box was opened, there were stones filled. The box was filled with stones. There was nothing precious. No gold, no silver, just stones. So, the point I am here trying to raise is that this is exactly like us. There is no independent I. It is just a mere projection. Everything, not just I, everything is devoid of inherent existence. But we construct something concrete, something unrealistic. And we have been serving this I. So in the end, there's nothing. So that's the reason why we really need to change our perception, change our view. We really need to understand the reality of self, of I, of all phenomena. Then things will start to look better and get better. So that is the content of the Heart Sutra, of the teaching, the content of the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. So here the Heart Sutra is called the essence of the Wisdom Sutra. So the Wisdom Sutra, or the perfection of wisdom, Sherab Jiparu Duchimba. Sherab Jiparu Duchimba, this is the term. The perfection is translated as perfection of wisdom. It is a term that is used loosely to many things, and commonly known as there are 4 types of perfection of wisdom. So the natural or real perfection of wisdom, which is actually the emptiness. So emptiness itself is sometimes known as the perfection of wisdom. And then what is called the textual perfection of wisdom. It is the text that contains the topic of emptiness. Those texts, that's why we call sutras. These texts are also called the Sherab Jiparu Duchimba, the perfection of wisdom. And then there is something called the path perfection of wisdom, the wisdom realizing emptiness. That is also called the perfection of wisdom. And then something called the resultant perfection of wisdom. So that is the actual perfection of wisdom. So wisdom that is perfected all the way. There is no more to be perfected. So which is actually the wisdom of Buddha's wisdom. There's nothing more to be perfected. whatever there is to be perfected, it is all perfected. So that is the actual perfection of wisdom. So the rest, the first three are called or labeled or termed as perfection of wisdom because all these either talks or teaches about perfection of wisdom, or in the case of path perfection of wisdom, is the path that leads to the perfection of wisdom. So that's why they are called, or they are labeled this term, the perfection of wisdom. So now when we talk about the perfection of wisdom, the textual construction, textual perfection of wisdom, there are various categories. So what is commonly known as, in Tibetan we call it Yum Keting Dusum. The first one, the extensive wisdom sutras. We call it Bum. So these Bum, of course, the sutras, the Buddha's the teachings, if I'm not mistaken, there are 108 at the moment, presently 108 volumes. But among those which are labeled as the perfection of wisdom sutras, so among that itself, you can categorize into three categories. So the first one is the extensive wisdom sutra, Bum, which has 100,000 stanzas. And then within itself, there are great of the great treatises. You can also divide into three categories: the great of the great extensive wisdom, the middle of the great extensive wisdom, the contents of the great extensive sutra, wisdom sutra. So at the moment, we don't have these, the great of the great treatise. We lost all that. Either lost or it was not translated. We don't have that in Tibet. We only have something called Bum, which is more like the contents of the great treatise, if I'm not mistaken. And then another category is, the second category is the Middle End Wisdom Sutra. We call it Ding. Ge means the detailed or the extensive. And then we have the medium one, which we call Niti. Niti, Ti Ni. Ni means Ni, 2. Ti means 20,000, or what do you call 10,000. So it's like 2 10,000. So that is actually 20,000 or 25,000. So some say 20,000 verses, some say 25,000 verses. So that is the Middle End Wisdom Sutras. That can be also divided into three categories, the way we did with the first one. And then finally, there's this condensed version, what you call the condensed version of Wisdom Sutra, which is called Khe Tongpa. In Khe Tongpa, and all these sutras in Tibetan culture, we read on these special days or special months. So you invite monks, a group of monks to read, because this one, like Bum, there are 12 volumes, so it will take time to finish. But the contents, Khe Tongpa is a very common thing. So when people request lamas to do divination or the checking, so one of the common recommended practice will be reading Khe Tongpa, so which has 8,000 stanzas. And during the lockdown, I had the opportunity to read that text, that sutra. So these are general categories. So Heart Sutra is the essence of all this. It's like the butter. So butter is, the result, the essence of churning the milk. First you milk, and then you make them into curd, and then you churn that. And when I was young, my father, we have cows, so he used to churn that. Of course, we don't have any machines to do that, so you have to manually do that. We have this churning containers, the cylinder, the wooden cylinder with a propeller, so you have to do it like this. So you have to be very skillful. You want to exert adequate force which is enough to churn but doesn't really spill out. So I still have that vivid image of my father. He will be covered, he will be wearing his apron. It's not really apron, he will be wearing something, and then he will doing, and there is a rhythm to it, and there is actually kind of a way you count the numbers. So every, 400 or something, and then you pour a little bit of hot water, and then you try, and you see. I don't know how he can see, how he can know that it is now the time that butter is ready. So anyway, aside that thing, so what I am trying to say is Heart Sutra is the essence, is like the butter from all that milk. So that's what we are going to try to understand. So in Tibet, these are how the sutras are published or printed, and then kept. So these are all curved individually. Every word is curved on wood, and then you can see here on the right side, these two gentlemen. That's how they do, each by each. You cut the paper, the perfect size, and then you color ink that plate, and then you put the paper, and then you just give one swipe or maybe several swipes to make sure that the image is caught or captured on the piece of paper. That's how they do it. It's really, really tedious. So that's how we manage to do this. But also there's a story about how these sutras came about. Not really came about, how we are able to preserve that. So these sutras are compiled. So Buddha taught at various places. And at that time, nobody documented all that. But after Buddha passed away, so they had this, what we call the gatherings. So where they invited all those who are present during the Buddha's teachings, and then whoever has memorized that. So those days or those era, they were real practitioners. And because they were, during the Buddha's time, many of them have achieved all kinds of concentrations or meditative powers. So they can memorize by heart and retain it for as long as they wish. They have that kind of powerful memory. So those who have memorized that, so they read, and then somebody kind of records all that. So that's how it happened. So there was also a story whereby when Buddha passed away, I don't know whether it's soon after Buddha passed away or after all this is done. So there was kind of a discussion. So now the Buddha is no longer here. Who amongst the beings, so it can be human beings, the devas and asuras and nagas, so who is going to be the custodian of these precious teachings? So some say that they couldn't really reach an agreement, so they just grabbed whatever they can, and so there was kind of dispersed to every direction. This the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, it was all brought down to the abode of Naga. So Naga became the custodians. And the story is that during Nagarjuna's time, Nagarjuna was invited to the Naga land or the Naga abode. And that's when Nagarjuna invited or brought all these teachings back, just for security purpose, not really security, what do you call that, as a bond for Nagarjuna to return to Nagaland again, so they kept part of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. So that's why some versions of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, there are a few chapters missing. That is because that Naga kept it as insurance, so that Nagarjuna can return again. So now, before we dive into the actual Heart Sutra, we need to have some basic understanding of the views of the four schools in Buddhism. So there are many differences, and these differences, what do you call this? This tiny nuances, and I myself don't know these nuances. So I am just focusing on their view on selflessness. So first, Buddhist and non-Buddhist. So non-Buddhist view is that self. They view self existing outside or separate from our aggregates. They believe or they subscribe to a self that is unitary, that is permanent, that is independent, eternal self or I. So that's the non-Buddhist view. But Buddhists, we don't view that. We say that there is no self outside our aggregates. Our self is dependent on aggregates. So first of all, the first two schools, Vaibhashika and Sautantrika school, this school, they only talk about the selflessness of persons. They don't talk about the selflessness of phenomena. So their ultimate goal is to achieve nirvana, liberation. So for that, they believe that they don't need to engage in the selflessness of phenomena. Just engaging in the selflessness of the person is enough to get there. So that's their view. And then Chittamatra school and Madhyamika school, of course, their goal is enlightenment, to achieve Buddhahood, not just the nirvana, not just nirvana, just not arhathood, it's a Buddhahood. So they talk about these two obscurations, the obscuration to liberation, the obscuration to Buddhahood. So I think the modern term, they call it emotional obstruction and cognitive obstruction. So in order to So this is the Chittamatra and Madhyamika also there too, the South Tantrika. So they expound or posit that just engaging in the selflessness of person is enough to tackle the obscuration, the emotional obscuration. But in order to eradicate, in order to counter the cognitive obscuration, then one needs to engage in the selflessness of phenomena. So first we establish that ground. So now when they talk about selflessness of a person, what do they mean? So each one understands differently. First of all, except Prasankika school, all this, the other school, other three schools, they espouse that they must have some reality, they must have substance from its own. So they do not subscribe to the Madhyamika's view that things do not exist from its own. To them, things must exist from its own. So that is a difference. Because they give like this is like this. So if you want to be a teacher, in order to be called teacher, you need to, I think doctor is better. In order to be called doctor, you need to have the qualification. You need to have studied medicine. And then once you have that, the qualification, and then people, when we give that label that he or she is a doctor, then that person becomes a doctor. You cannot call someone without a qualification and then that person can become a doctor. So their reason is that there must be something from its own. But that alone is but you also need to have the the conception or the mind to impute that onto that qualification or that substance. So that's the common view amongst the three lower schools. So that's why for them, when you analyze where I is, they have to have something. So that's why, like the other schools, some of them, they pinpoint to the consciousness, the sixth consciousness. So they say that is self. And like Madhyamika school, they find fault, they find flaws in pinpointing that onto the consciousness. So they talk about Kunshi Namshi, which is the eighth consciousness, which is like the repository consciousness, where we store all our imprints. This is all because they subscribe to the view that things must exist from its own. So when you subscribe to that one, you need to be able to show that you need to be able to pinpoint to a substance that is whatever that is. So other things, I think they pinpoint to the aggregation of the thing, like mobile phone, that aggregation of the mobile parts, that is the phone itself. When it comes to self, they pinpoint to either to consciousness or this Kunshi Namshi, the eighth consciousness. But then when it comes to Prasankika, it's completely different. So they literally subscribe to Buddha's words. When Buddha says, so there is no real substance. Does it make sense? So now let's talk about this. So now, that's why we have this something called the selflessness of phenomena. So in Prasangika view, whether you are a Hinayana practitioner, whether you are embarking on the hearer or the solitary journey, or you are Mahayana, there is no way you can achieve your goal without understanding of emptiness. The wisdom aspect of path is the emptiness. From the Prasangika's view, the version of selflessness the other schools are talking about is too gross. It is not powerful enough to really tackle the root of ignorance. So that's why they talk about the things do not exist from its own. It is just mere projection. So let's look at that closely. So we talked about this. So how the Prasangika school explain this mere existence? So look at this image. What do you see? This is a rope, yeah? This is not a snake. But at the first glance, what do we see? To us, it appears as a snake, a coil of rope that appears to be a snake. So normally in the text, classical texts, the analogy is given of a coiled rope in a dark area. So when you come across, let's say late evening, you come back to your place, and then you saw something there, curled. Actually, in reality, it is a rope. But because of all these conditions, first of the way the rope was there, and then it is dim, it's not clear, so we will spring back. First thing is, oh, there's a snake. Because of that, there's a fear. But after closer examination, we realize that that is not the case. It is just a rope. But that fear was real. That reaction was real. It's like a dream. When we have a nightmare, we are scared. There was fear. It was real. We sweat. Our heart started to beat faster. The physiological response is same as seeing actual, whatever that monstrous image we are seeing in our dream. So they say that all this like dream and this one, if things must exist from its own, even if we kind of being lenient and subscribe to the what you call the other school's view that there must something from its own. So you say in this case, where is that thing? If it is a real snake, of course you can say that whole thing. That is the snake. You can pinpoint to that. But in this rope case, where is it? Each and every part, of course, they won't say that these parts are the snake. But they say the aggregation. But in this case, aggregation, even the aggregation, there is no snake. So that's why it is mere projection. We project that Our mind is the one. It is like the movie screen. So the projector is behind us. And the screen is just empty, the white, a blank. It's like the tabula rasa, the blank slate. There's nothing there. But the moment when the projector starts, then suddenly things appears. And if it's projecting from behind so far, but it looks like it is really there. So that's why the Madhyamika school, the Prasankika Madhyamika Prasankika. So they say that it's just mere projection, mere labeling. So why these are important? So we talked about that. Let me just give an example. Not a story actually. This was told to me by somebody. One time that person was called in at the workplace, and this boss never liked this person. So in the office, the boss went on scolding this and that. At that very moment, the person who is at the receiving end, suddenly this insight arose. This insight that how dangerous it is. Whatever that person is saying, whatever I'm hearing, it is actually a mental projection. There is nothing, what you call, solid there. And the moment that person had that insight, everything kind of disintegrated. No anger, nothing. Instead, kind of felt compassion towards that person and offered, is there anything I can help? And the boss was quite stunned, astonished, didn't expect that kind of response. So that very moment, that anger, due to the anger there is pain and what you call the suffering, uneasiness, unhappiness, all that disintegrated, all that subsided. But then the person says that the minute you walk out of the office or of the boss office, your colleagues are all staring at you. Then this pride, embarrassment, all comes back. It's all because, again, people are staring at me. People are thinking low of me. They have a low opinion of me. How would they now treat me? So you see, it's so important. Of course, it is best if we are really able to realize emptiness. Really see the empty nature of things. Even if we don't, just even thinking about it. Buddha said that even somebody, when you hear about the emptiness, and even if you doubt, just doubting itself is so beneficial, can be so meritorious. So if that is the case, if just doubting itself is so beneficial, then if you really believe and study and understand how beneficial that would be. In Sutra, there are so many. I think those those of you who read the Dharma Sutra, there are so many passages, so many lines extolling the benefits of perfection of wisdom. So in one sutra, the Buddha asked, if someone is to feel the what we call the Tongsum, this three world is unimaginable, yeah. Just our earth is so huge. And there's this three world. If we are to fill that up with precious gems, and if we are to offer to each and every Buddha existing in 10 directions, how meritorious that would be. Of course, the answer is that that would be such an enormous meritorious. And then Buddha said that just memorize, just reading, writing, memorizing, or explaining the meaning of one line or one stanza on the perfection of wisdom or on emptiness is far more meritorious than making that kind of extensive offering. So imagine, it is like beyond conception, isn't it? It's so beneficial. So that's the general thing. But I told you these experiences. I told you earlier another experience where when my friend, when there was a turbulence in the flight, there was fear. And then the moment when you reflect on emptiness, it suddenly subsides. The fear is gone. So that is the goal. So that's what we have to do. So studying this Heart Sutra, we have to have this goal that I am going to apply. I am going to understand this, meditate on this, contemplate on this, meditate on this, and then I will always remember every situation I will bring in this understanding. So if we are able to do that, then it will make a difference. Then it is worth studying. Otherwise, another additional to the list of things that you have covered, list of things that you know about. So now coming back to the point, so emptiness. So it is very important first what we are negating. We are not saying that things do not exist. Nobody is saying this. Buddha is not saying this. So when we say that things, there is no inherent existence. So this is quite, what do you call, terminological, there is this lack of terminology. So in the sutras, they say that there is no ngonyigi matuba. So English word, I think the most common word is inherent existence. So when you see ngonyigi matuba, everybody says ngonyigi matuba. Like Chittamatra, they will also say ngonyigi matuba. The, what do you call that, the Sautantrika, the Madhyamika Sautantrika also says ngonyigi matuba. So if we use the English term, everybody agrees that there is no intrinsic nature in things. There is no inherent existence. But defining intrinsic version differs. Everybody, every school has their own understanding of what is intrinsic existence. So, Prasangika, Madhyamika Prasangika Rangshinji Matuba. There is something called Rangwena Matuba that is clearer. Things do not exist from its own. But Rangshinji Matuba, Ngonyigi Matuba, all these, they use the same term. That's why there's a lot of confusion. Confusion arises. So when we say that there is no intrinsic nature, so we are talking about, so here it says, Kangshi kenle keba tema ke, tela kebe rangshin yoma yin, kenla rale kangde tongbar she. So English translation says, whatever arises from conditions does not arise. So does not arise here is intrinsic, what do you call, birth, is it? That things do not arise from, let's say, the how to put, so basically what I'm saying is here is that because things, when they come about, when they come into existence, when they come into being, they rely on causes and conditions. So when we say there is intrinsic nature, when we say there are inherent existence, so it kind of denotes that it does not rely on anything. It is not dependent on causes and conditions. So here it was saying that what we are negating is that independent arising. There is no independent arising. Everything is dependent on either causes or conditions, or parts, or the labeling, or what you call the designation. So that's why whatever arises from conditions does not arise. So does not arise means does not arise independently. It does not have the intrinsic nature of arising. Or here, the second one. So when we say there is no intrinsic arising, when we say there's no arising, it is not talking about it doesn't arise. It's talking about inherent nature of arising. Whatever depends on condition is said to be empty. So there's this what do you call that symbiotic relationship between the dependent origination and the emptiness. So there are so many like this. Where is, I have another one which says Kangshi wera Kangjir tenjung mayinbe choga yoba mayino. Tejir tongba mayinbe choga yoba mayino. So it said, that which is not dependently origination, such a thing does not exist. So everything is dependent arising or dependent originated, dependently originated. So there is no such thing that is not arisen due to the dependence on something else. Therefore, this is the main point. Therefore, that which is not empty, such a thing does not exist. The first one says, everything is dependent originated. There is nothing that is not dependently originated. Because of that, because everything is dependently originated, they are empty. Therefore, that which is not empty, such a thing does not exist. So everything that exists is empty. The reason is because of dependent origination. So, object of refutation, object of negation. So in Lamrim Chenmo text, There are pages and pages on this. There are misunderstandings. They first quote the other's view, and then they kind of refute that view, and then finally establishes the Prasangika's actual view of what we are negating. So anyway, this when whatever we are negating, it must not fall into these two extremes. So if something exists, so for you will be surprised that these the scholars of Tibet, there was so much misunderstanding that when they say that, of course you can now understand that, like the first three schools, for them, in order for things to exist, they must exist from its own. Otherwise, everything cannot be. So they say that if things do not exist from its size, then what happens is, then you cannot really differentiate between what is evil and what is good, what is right and what is wrong, what is negative and what is positive. If it is just mere projection, so that's their argument, then no point practicing, because there is no such thing as the positive or the wholesome, or there's no such thing as unwholesome, because everything is mental projection. So that's their thinking. So because of that, so when Madhyamika, the Prasangika Madhyamika school, when they say that things do not exist, for many, then things don't exist at all. So they fall into what is called the nihilism. But then when say that things exist, they must exist from its own. Whereas the Prasangika Madhyamika say that there is no iota of solidity from its own. Everything is mental projection. So this is important. So we need to distinguish between merely existent and inherently existence. When we say things exist, we are saying that things merely exist. We are not saying that things exist inherently. Likewise, we also have to make this distinction that between the non-existent and non-inherently existent. When we say things do not exist inherently, we are not saying that things do not exist. Things do exist, but they do not exist inherently. So, we are beyond. So let me just cover this and then we'll stop. So, the main reason for both those who subscribe to the existence of things from its own and those who negate that view, both cite the reason dependent origination. Like the Sautantrika, Madhyamika Sautantrika school, they also say things do exist because they are dependent originated. They are dependent arising. Whereas the Prasangika, Madhyamika Prasangika, they also say that things do not exist from its own because they are dependently arisen. So if we understand what we are negating, then it makes sense. So here the Prasangika's view or understanding of intrinsic nature is that something that is independent, something that is not dependent or reliant on causes or conditions. Then we have something like, it says, if there is intrinsic existence, the whole world will be non-arising, non-disintegrating, and will last for all eternity, devoid of varying states. That's very true. If your existence is not dependent on causes and conditions, then there's no reason that it can come at any time, any stage. You don't have to wait for the causes to come together. It can come anytime. Then causes and condition, the causes and effect, they can be simultaneous. Because the result is not contingent on the causes and conditions. So that's what he was saying. If there is indecision, the whole world will be non-arising. Nothing will arise, because things to arise, you need causes and conditions. So if things do not depend on causes and conditions, then nothing will come about, because there's no causes. So that's their argument. And then once it has arisen, they will never disintegrate. It will remain all the time, because disintegration and ceasing also depends on causes and conditions. Because there's change in the cause, then you change or you disintegrate. So it's a, even if something has already come up, then it will remain forever, last forever, because the ceasing does not depend on causes condition, because it exists independently and will last for all eternity, devoid of varying states. Then we cannot talk about various stages. Everything will be same exactly. Why we have different stages and different volumes or different quantity? All this because of the causes. Varying degree of causes and conditions corresponds to the varying degree of that result. But now that this does not depend on this one, so everything will be static, plain, all same. So that's what we say, devoid of varying states. There's no different states, no different stages. If empty things do not exist, then attainment of what is not attained, termination of suffering, as well as karma and the elimination of afflictions would not exist. Same thing. Enlightenment, dependent on all this path, stages of path. If it is independently existing or inherently existence, then the causes and condition has nothing to do with that. So whatever we are doing is it will result into nothing. So these are the arguments. So that's why Buddha said that whoever sees dependent origination sees the truth of suffering and its origin and cessation and the path to cessation. So this is the importance of understanding dependent origination. And we are still have time. I think we better stop here, and we will pick up next week. So next week I will be teaching to the Tibetans, so that will be in Tibetan language. And of course, if you want to join, you are most welcome. So we will stop here today, and then even though we cannot, because of this situation, so we cannot meet in person, so that's why we cannot have these Jorju practices. But you can always do at home. You kind of allocate this Sunday 10 to 11:30 as your class time, and then on class days, of course, you will attend the class, but non-class days, you can do that Georgia practice and then do meditation. Or you can even use that as a revision time. You can go through this and not just leave it intellectually. Try to contemplate on whatever you have heard and try to make sense of it, and then always think of, how can I apply this? How does this help me? What are the ways I can use this teaching? So that, I think that it is important to do that. Then you will find many opportunities to apply. And then you will see the value of these teachings, because from your experience, if it is your own personal experience, it is so rich. So please try to do that, and then I will see you next week. So let's say the prayers. Today I was hoping to start the actual text, but it didn't. But this is important, because now that we have the foundation, we have the basic understanding. So when we go through the text, so I don't need to repeat that. So the foundation is already established. So we just straight away dive and read through, and you may be surprised that we can finish the whole sutra, the Heart Sutra, in one session. Okay, stay safe and see you again. Let's say the prayers. Thagi chini sabe gyawa de tenda drowa kunla kangben dan kebara chizun losan chagwa ye tembe nyingbo rindo seje sho jambe bawe chedara kimba dan kundu sambu teyan teshin deda gwinge jesu talo je gyawa deda tamje Rabdu ngo dusun shekwe gyawa tamje je ngowa kanla chodu ngaba dagi gewe zawa digun jan sambu chuji rabdu ngowa ragi gyawa deyi kewu gun sonama yishi sosa de sonama yishi le chungwe tamba gunyi tobar sho